Evening, people. We're back again. Not the best of evenings as far as Arsenal are concerned, but this just shows that we have not got strong enough squad depth. It really is quite that simple. I know that we've made changes in the Europa League as well, and we've managed to get through some of those games, but when you come up against a Premier League competition, it ain't going to be the same. Having said that, looking at the team news, Arsenal made 10 changes. Brighton made 8. And a lot of people said that was not Brighton's B team. Yes, it was, people. They kept Danny Welbeck, Caicedo, and Dunk. Everyone else was a complete changed player, which is crazy because Lamptey was in there. What's his name? The guy who scored. Oh, the Asian guy on the wing who come on. I cannot remember his name. Oh my God, what's his name? Anyway, someone tell me in the chat. The guy who scored the second goal, I can't remember. He came on as a substitute. They've got some great players, Brian, and it just shows that their scouting system really is fantastic. But tonight's game showed that we need to spend in January, people, and that's if we want to push for a title challenge, and I believe that we can do if we get the right players in. It's not all doom and gloom because the Europa League and the Premier League, for me, are definitely the two priorities, along with, of course, the FA Cup. The Carabao Cup is always a bonus if you can get a day out to Wembley or if you can win a trophy. So I always take trophies seriously, but in today's competition, it looked as if Mikel Arteta didn't. Going with Cole Hine in goal proved that. Also bringing in Cedric into the back line. I expected to see the other three play, holding Saliba and Tierney was no shock to me. To be honest, seeing Lokonga and El Neni together was no shock to me, and Vieira ahead of Erdegaard. Also, I think Marquinhos, Nelson and Ketia is quite a poor front three, but having said that, we started the game pretty well from what I could hear. Obviously, nobody could watch the game, but from what I could hear, Nelson set up to Eddie, and I saw the goals on Sky Sports, was a good goal. You go 1-0 up. Everybody thinks this is going to be a particularly comfortable night. Eddie and Ketia loves this competition. We go 1-0 up. Really good finish from Eddie, by the way, from the left-hand side. Curled it into the top corner, and there was no chance for the goalkeeper. So Nelson and Eddie did pretty well. But from what I can hear on the radio, I don't think they touched the ball much other than that. Towards the second half, I could keep hearing Eddie's name, but Nelson sounded like he had a bit more of a quiet night. But having said that, Marquinhos, although I did hear his name quite a bit, from what I hear was quite static. Both him and Nelson very, very static tonight. And then it just shows the quality of Saka or Martinelli, to be fair. So personally, I feel that there's a lot that we can learn from tonight moving forward. I don't want to look at things too negatively. I don't want to start having a rant about how we've got out the Carabao Cup to Brighton. Believe it or not, the last team to beat Arsenal at home, Brighton and Hove Albion. And that proves to me that they're, one, a bogey side, but two, when you make 10 changes against the top side like that are doing well in the Premier League, that although I've made 8 changes, do have good players, it proves that you just can't do that. So hopefully we've learned from that tonight, and hopefully we learn not to do it again in that situation if we get another cup draw like Brighton in the FA Cup. And secondly, go and spend some money in January. Now, the rumours are that we're going to, and I hope that he's given a bit more of a war chest than the 20 or 30 million that people are suggesting that he might spend. I hope it's more than treble that, because that's what we're going to need if we want a title push. Tonight's performance proved to me that their players just aren't quite good enough in terms of our B team. Now, Brighton's B team have beaten Arsenal's B team. And if you don't believe that was the Brighton B team, go and check who they started at the weekend and go and check who they started tonight, because only Welbeck, Caicedo and Dunk were the players they kept in. They made 8 changes. Arsenal made 10 changes. That means they have a much better team than us reserve-wise. Or does it? Was it just one of those nights? When you look at it statistically on paper, you probably look to disagree with that statement, but the result does not lie. And that is something on paper that does not lie. From what I hear tonight, Brighton looked very good. They controlled some of the game when they got themselves in front. It looked like they were only going to win the game, and then they went and scored another. And I don't feel that we have a side that's quite good enough yet if we want to be going for that title, and I think tonight proved it. In terms of our squad depth, I really do feel there's problems across the front three still and in midfield when we play that second string of players. At the back, we're looking okay, guys. I can't lie. Zinchenko and Tierney looks covered at left back. Tomiyasu's playing there also. At right back, Ben White's come in and proven that he can play there if Tomiyasu is never about. I think at centre back, we proved that we've got Ben White and Gabriel from last year, and that Saliba is now added to that. At the back, we're pretty good. In goal, we'll question whether Ramsdale should have played tonight. I'm not so sure why we swapped the goalkeepers around, but we always do that. It's no shock. For me, that could be a position that we could have probably been weaker in this season than we were last season with Leno, but Leno needed to go. But in midfield and across the front three, I certainly do believe anyway, particularly in centre midfield, that we are quite weak. Now, Lokonga, a lot of people are saying he needs a loan move. I'm starting to question whether or not this guy is actually the real deal for Arsenal, because I haven't seen him playing too well in an Arsenal shirt. I gave him the benefit of the doubt last season, not just because it was his first season, but actually because a young kid at a different league, he's been asked not just to be chucked into the deep end a couple of times, but more than a couple of times. He had a man of the match performance against Newcastle last season at home, and he never got to really see the midfield position again next to Thomas Partey or anybody else. He was always next to Ainsley Maitland-Niles or Lokonga. And when we got, sorry, Lokonga, he is Lokonga, Charlie Patino, against Forest. And when those two players went out, what happened then? He was asked to sit and hold on his own when Granit Xhaka was playing at left back. So I had a lot of sympathy for him last season, and I felt that he was perhaps mismanaged a bit. All of last season, we saw him play, start of this season, in pre-season, we saw him playing as a number 8. And he's been asked to play as a number 6 quite a lot this season in the Europa League games. In this cup game, he was finally allowed to push a little bit forward. In a couple of those games, I would suggest, actually. The other night in the Europa League, we saw it on Thursday. He was playing in a normal of a number 8 role. And I haven't seen anything or heard anything tonight to suggest that he had a fantastic game. I think there was parts of his dribbling that sounded quite good, and he was getting into the box, but his final pass was letting him down. And I still have problems with him off the ball, and his tackling is just non-existent. So I don't quite know what Sambi Lokonga is. Maybe he needs a loan. But I'm just saying, at the age of 23, you should know your position at least by now, and you should be able to tell whether a player is good enough in this side. And I just worry for his future a little bit. As for Mohamed El Neni, he came in and he did the job that Lokonga was been asked to do since El Neni's been out. And from what I hear, was just a typical El Neni performance tonight. Nothing to write home about, but at the same time, pretty convincing and solid performance in parts of the game. But when you look at the scoreline, defensively, it would suggest we had some issues. Now, I want to talk about the first goal because Karl Heinz come flying out, absolutely flying out. And I don't quite know what he's doing. I believe personally there's been some issues there in terms of his naivety and maybe his age, but I don't quite understand as a goalkeeper where you're going there. Welbeck hasn't got that ball under control, and it doesn't seem to me like there was a massive, massive amount of threat that he was going to be able to put the ball in the net anyway. But maybe you're wrong. Maybe he has to react. He can't react like that though. He needs to be a bit wiser than that, and perhaps he's just too young to be put in and thrown into the team like that. I remember Mikel Arteta 2 seasons ago with Runnison against Manchester City. We lost 4-1 and he played terribly. So maybe we need to look at it and see where we go from there in goal. Across that front three, though, I'm still worried because when Jesus, Saka, and Martinelli are out, there's only Smith Rowe that comes back into that side and actually keeps it at that level. Everything else is a downgrade, whether it's Nelson, who I think has been great over the last couple of games, Marquinhos, who's still learning, Eddie and Nketiah. There's nobody out of those three that you look at and go, wow. Like, let's be honest. Wow. Like, they're so good. I can't see that. You know, tonight I was hearing that it was really static, both of them, right and left. And I think that's going to be an issue moving forward. Strange one, really, substitution-wise. I felt maybe we could have brought them on a bit sooner. Having said that, at 1-1, I felt that we probably would have normally gone around, 60 to 65 minutes. As soon as Brighton scored, I expected the big boys to come on. We only really saw Martinelli and Jesus came on in the attacking areas. Gabriel came on and Zinchenko came on. But I expected to see, to be honest, complete wholesale changes across that front line because that was where we were clearly struggling. I felt we had a lot of problems in the final third against Chelsea in terms of us missing chances, and apparently we had a couple tonight that we missed. One player that I could tell who didn't have a very good game, as James Bonds just said, was Cedric. He says Cedric was shit just from the commentary I listened to. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that, to be fair. Not many people thought that he had a good game. My mum's in the chat says Cedric sounded poor too. He did, but he is poor, and he has been poor for a few seasons. I really don't understand why he's still at the club, personally. Maybe we're just letting his contract run out, but we need an upgrade on Cedric, to be fair. If Tomiyasu and Ben White are going to be the options at right back, then we can probably afford to just leave him, let him go. But I think Arteta likes him around the place for whatever reason. James is asking a very good question. Potts, you really wanted to stay in this competition. I love trophies, bro. So, of course, I wanted to stay in this competition. I'm not saying that we have a squad strong enough to stay in this competition and win it. And tonight prove why that we have not got that. But I would have liked to have won this competition. Of course, I would. It's a cup, mate. And if you said to me, if you're out of this, you can win the league and the Europa League, then, of course, I'd say, yep, get ourselves out of it. Do we know that we're going to do that? Unfortunately, we don't. So I would have liked to have stayed into it for a bit longer. I'm just going to run through very quickly before I come back to this, the other results tonight, because I think it's important to show what else has happened elsewhere. A lot of these games have gone to penalties, by the way, and some of them have won and gone through. Arsenal 1, Brighton 3, of course, is our game. Newcastle have beaten Crystal Palace on penalties, and they go through. Southampton have beaten Sheffield Wednesday on penalties. Wolves have beaten Leeds 1-0. Manchester City have beaten Chelsea 2-0. And the other games that are currently gone to penalties are West Ham and Blackburn Rovers and Liverpool and Derby County. West Ham 2, Blackburn 2, and Liverpool 0, Derby 0. And of course, I've left the best result of the night till last. It's Nottingham Forest 2, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Now, let me tell you this, guys. There is no way that I can sit there and start laughing out loud when we've gone out of the trophy as well. But the reason I'm going to say that we can smile is because this is a trophy that Arsenal can afford to go out of. Tottenham have no chance of winning the Champions League or the Premier League, in my opinion, and only have a chance of winning the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. Well, now they're out of one of them already. First round, bang, it's gone. And Conte, I felt, was brought in to win now, not in 5 years' time. They need a trophy. They're desperate. They are so desperate for a trophy. They would have taken the Carabao Cup and finished in ninth as a good season just because they've got a trophy. That's all they care about. Stop bantering us for not winning trophies. We've got one now. Well, you haven't. And you're still going to struggle because for me, domestic cups are City's to lose. And I think the title is City's to lose. So could City go and do the quadruple? Champions League? Who knows? It could be PSG. It could be Real Madrid again. It could be someone completely bizarre. But when you look at it, if Man City are in that competition, in the FA Cup, I think Spurs have got a problem in winning that as well, as long as Man City are in it. So I feel personally like Tottenham could be trophyless yet again. And wouldn't that be beautiful? Absolutely beautiful to see. But we can't get too cocky because we were poor tonight and we made too many changes. To make that many changes, 10 changes, I think showed that we just weren't ready. And I think on the commentary they said, yeah, we've made way too many changes tonight. We needed more of a Europa League side to come in, which was a little bit rotation. Maybe Jesus plays, maybe Martinelli plays, and then we go with Nelson or Marquinhos. Maybe Erdegaard and Vieira could have played with a little bit of creativity against Brighton, which I feel that we lacked tonight from what I can hear. And then obviously you play El Neni in there. I don't think the back line killed us. I know Cedric potentially had a poor game tonight, but with Tomiyasu out injured, I think it's hard to play Ben White every game, and he has to try to strengthen. If Karl Hein doesn't play, do we give away a penalty? If Ramsdale plays in goal, do we concede 3? I think this is all unfortunate at the moment. Hindsight, we don't know. We have no idea. But all I'll say is at 1-1, it didn't sound like Arsenal were under a huge amount of pressure. But when Brighton made their 2 substitutes, and he came on to Mitoma. Is it Mitoma? Mitoma, I've got it right now. Mitoma came on and I thought was class. Absolutely class. And I really like this player. I think Brighton's scouting system is superb. And yet again, they found someone. And I look at it now and think once they went 2-1, it looked as if the game was over to me. 3-1, of course it was. But 2-1, it sounded like really down and out. So frustrating. I want to come on to another player now. I am getting a lot of text messages and I'm seeing a lot on social media questioning Fabio Vieira. I want you guys to let me know what you think in the chat. Because for me, I personally feel like it's too early to judge on this guy. He needs to get on the weights, that's for sure. He definitely has something about him. He's got a nice pass. He's got clear vision for me to see in terms of passing forward. See a pass. He's got great passing ability and he can dink a ball in. But I understand what people are saying about questioning where this £40 million has come from. I think we looks like at the moment we've potentially overpaid. If he was 20 million, I think people would probably say, yeah, he's in and around what I'd expect. But let's look at who we've paid 40 million for in the past. 40 million pound players like Cazorla, you could see straight away. Alexis Sanchez, you could see straight away. Mesut Ozil, you could see straight away. Even Martin Erdegaard, you could see straight away. I'm not sure we've seen that with Fabio Vieira. I think we've seen a nice couple of touches, a really good goal against Brentford, and other than that, few quiet games. So I understand the concerns, but guys, it is very, very early days. We've got to remember this guy's hardly had a run of games. And when you look at how he's playing at the moment, it's kind of a bit of everywhere and a little bit in between. He's sometimes asked to go on the right. He's sometimes asked to go in the middle. He's sometimes asked to play with players around him that either he hasn't been able to get used to yet or that actually aren't even in the first team themselves. So I think we need to be a little bit patient with Fabio Vieira and judge him once he starts to get break into this first team. I.e., if, for example, Erdegaard gets a suspension or a couple of matches out, we might see Vieira in and around Jesus, Saka and Martinelli and think, oh, he's a baller. So I want to give him a little bit more time before I start to question him. But I understand where people are coming from personally. I can't sit here and say I'm gutted tonight, guys, because obviously it's not a competition that I was desperate to win. But it's always really hard to go out of a competition, one, this early, but two, actually ever at all, because it's a trophy opportunity. But when I look at how things are going, I find it very difficult to understand how people can start losing their heads tonight, because this is a competition that, let's be honest, it would be a bonus if we won, but it's not absolutely devastating that we've gone out. It's just a bit frustrating. We haven't been able to go into the deep stages of both competitions, because my expectations this season were that we could do that. Now, when you get Brighton at home and you make 10 changes, you're always going to be risky. I know Brighton made 8 changes, and I think the concern for me tonight is that Brighton's B team looks better than Arsenal's B team. That's a bit of a worry. I'll say this lastly. This could be a blessing. And the reason it could be a blessing is not because we've gone out of a competition. It's because the strength in depth is not there, which means we have to spend in January. Now, if we would have used that team against Brighton and gone and whooped them 4-0, and if we would have gone and won our Europa League games 4-0, 5-0, it might have proven that actually we don't need to strengthen, because we've got our second team here that's gone unbeaten in the Europa League with a goal difference of plus 16, has beaten Brighton by 3 to 4 goals and blitzed them through to the next round. I think we're quite happy. So let's look at this in a little bit more of a positive light than perhaps even I normally would, and say that this might be a wake-up call to the board and the ownership that Arsenal need to spend if they're serious about winning the title and winning the Europa League. Because if we get a few injuries, these players are coming back in and their man ain't good enough. Trust me. When I say it, they ain't. It's been very, very lucky to see us win against Zurich twice. It's been very lucky to see us in one game get a win against a couple of the others, Bodo Glimt being one, and PSV, we lost to them. We've just lost to Brighton. If we're losing to Bodo Glimt, to PSV and Brighton, it's not looking too good for our season if we're going to stick with this side. So let's see what happens. I'm going to take some of your questions. Please put a Q next to your question if you can, because I'm going to do this to wrap up. Ronnie is saying Mo Hader played the game live from his Insta story. Did he really? So I got to see most of the game. Vieira, Cedric, El Neni, Nelson, and Holding was so poor. Ouch, that doesn't sound good. And isn't it funny, Ronnie, that these are the players that last season let us down for top 4? For example, Cedric and Holding were 2 of them that I would suggest that did. Where else have we got? Someone saying Vieira is trash. Yeah, I've mentioned that one. I personally feel we need more time before we could do that. Mitoma is quality. We should be trying to get him the winter break. I like this player. I honestly like this player. Stephen Foot has said it's high down. It's no great loss in my opinion. Look at the bigger picture. We move on. David Yu has said about Fabio Vieira. Have we figured out his best position? Or is it that we're playing him with the fringe team players too much? Yeah, I quite agree with that. And I did comment on that myself. Here we go. James has said, yeah, Potts, I was comparing him to the 40 million players as well. Yeah, I think we have to when we sign someone for that much. Jashar, big up yourself, mate. Says, big up Dan, big up yourself. Craig, AFC 87. How are you doing, Craig? Hope you're well, bruv. Says, Dad, I'll be honest, I'm gutted we haven't won this trophy since 1993. I am as well, man. I am as well. I liked this. This was the first trophy I ever saw Arsenal win that I could remember. I was born in 87 and I got to miss 89. I missed 87 as well. Missed 91. Couldn't remember that amazing season. 93 is the first season I remember Arsenal winning a cup against Sheffield Wednesday, and we won obviously both of them. So for me, I'm with you, man. Alfie says, I don't agree, Dan. We need a trophy too. Arteta messed this up tonight, just like last year. Yeah, I think you're right. He did. He made too many changes and we're out. So we can't sit there and say that he got it right. That's for sure. We do need a trophy, bro. We do. And I'm not saying we don't. I'm just saying that our priorities at the moment are unfortunately show tonight that it's not the Carabao Cup. So let's see what happens. Let's go down here to see Laura says, do you think it's a blessing in disguise that we don't have an extra 3 games in January at a crucial period? Great point. Absolutely great point. I feel personally like it is a huge, huge blessing in disguise. Not only that we miss out on some of those players, some of those games, sorry, but that we might be able to spend some money now. If I'm honest, Liverpool look like they've gone through as well. Let me just check that on here. Where are we? There must be two other games now, is there not? Yeah, Liverpool are through on penalties, and Blackburn Rovers are through on penalties against West Ham. So Arsenal, Chelsea, West Ham and Spurs have all gone out tonight. Oh my, wow. I did not expect that. But there we go. Let's have a look at this from Andre. He says, what do you say to the bench players that played tonight if you're Arteta? You've got to big them up, mate. You've got to try and keep them up. They're going to be down. You can't sit there and slate them. You can't say you're not good enough. Although some of them might need a few honest home truths at times, I don't think this is the game to be doing that. I feel like the confidence and momentum needs to be with us for this Wolves game at the weekend. So they need to just say, look, unfortunately tonight it didn't go our way. You got beat fair and square. You need to move on, man up, and let's get on with it. Lee Farrell, big up yourself, bro. Hope you're well, man. I haven't seen you for a long time. Says, is it time to loan out Lokonga next season, Dan? I don't think he's ready. Bro, 100% he's not ready. I've seen enough of this guy now to know that he's not ready for our first team, and I don't even know that he's a good squad player. Every time I see him play at the moment, it looks weaker and weaker. So for me, it might even be time to just cut your losses and say this hasn't suited your league. I don't know your position, and let's try and take 10 million or so for you because it ain't really worked out. And people highly rated this guy. They said he was the new Yaya Toure figure, and Anderlecht were saying how fantastic his leadership skills were, gave him the captaincy at the age of 21. Vincent Kompany and Thierry Henry said this player looks an absolute baller. And I haven't seen it in an Arsenal shirt, mate. So I kind of agree with you there, to be fair. Ronnie, pick up yourself, bro. Hope you're well, Ron. Do you think it's a worry that Martinelli and Jesus are going to the World Cup? I'm certainly worried. The reason I'm not worried, mate, is because I believe personally, and this sounds mad, that them mentally would be affected massively more than if they didn't go than if they did. And I think that they would have been really struggling, particularly if one of them were to win the World Cup without them being there. I always remember Lauren Koscielny did his serious injury in the last game of Arsene Wenger's kind of European competition against Atletico Madrid in the Europa League, and he never got to go to the World Cup and win it with France, and that mentally affected him. And I think it would be the same with Jesus or Martinelli. So I'm personally happy that they are going, to be fair. Here we go. Chris Sands says, Dan, let me ask you, would you take Luis Suarez for free in January for 6 months? I wouldn't, bro, because I just don't think that is what we need right now. I'm not interested in Luis Suarez. I don't know how old he is now, but listen, Eddie Suarez, is Luis Suarez better than Eddie Nketiah? Yes, he is. But I don't feel like that's the type of signing that we need. Huge money wages coming in for that. I don't think that's going to fit what we need right now. It might unsettle what we've got going on. I think I'd much prefer someone better than that coming in. And I would, if you said to me now, do you want Luis Suarez or Ivan Toney? I'd take Ivan Toney. I would, 100%, man. Ron again says, do you think this result will affect our result against Wolves? As I think it will, as momentum is everything in football. Momentum is everything in football with the same team. If one team loses and there's another one playing that Saturday, it's not so bad for me. I think if this team that we've just seen against Brighton, yeah, trust me, I would seriously struggle to feel that we're going to take anything from it with that team we've just seen tonight. But let's see what happens, man. Here we go. Andrea says, if Southgate turns on his brain and takes Benny Blanco and England goes against Brazil, who wins? The Martinelli versus White duel. That's a really good one, by the way. Okay, here's what I think about that scenario. I've seen Ben White a lot this season and praised him. And the reason I've praised him has not been because he's been consistently good in throughout the games and his all-round game has been good. His duels has been fantastic. Like, he's kept some very good players quiet. You know, you look at the Liverpool game, you look at the Palace game, you look at the Chelsea game, you look at most of the big teams we've played, Spurs. Benny White has kept them boys quiet. So I'd fancy my chances with Ben White against Martinelli. I would. But trust me, we ain't playing Brazil. We ain't getting that far. Southgate, I'm hearing he's leaving Madison out, and I'm done with him. I cannot believe he's doing that. But apparently Ben White's going, from what I'm hearing. But we'll find that out tomorrow. He's taken Marcus Rashford and Ben White ahead of Sancho and Madison, from what I'm being told. So, yeah, this is going to be a strange one. Guys, we're going to leave it there. This has been a pleasure talking to you guys, and it does always cheer me up seeing all of you in the chat, interacting and throwing your comments in. Let's not be too down about this one. Unfortunately, it just wasn't going to happen. And I obviously can't see how people can start losing their heads. But trust me, Twitter will melt down because Arsenal fans melt down. Very disappointing, very frustrating. I would love to have won this competition. But let's be honest, in terms of our priorities now, we're out of this one. We move to Wolves, and let's see what we can do against them on Saturday evening before the World Cup. Go there, get 3 points, and we know we're top of the league. That's the way it is, man. That's all I can say about it when it comes to Arsenal this season. And who would have thought it that we'd be top of the league going into the World Cup, knowing that when we return towards Christmas, it'll be a happy Christmas. And oh my God, Arsenal are top. So let's just be positive. Let's not lose our heads and let's try and keep it going. I'll be interested to see what happens against Wolves. I believe the same team will play that played against Chelsea. I can't see him changing much, if I'm honest. But it'll be an interesting one, and I'll be back to do some reaction from it once we have some understanding of what the teams are doing around us, because we've got a Race for Europe show, which I hope you all enjoyed last night. Dan Lawless got absolutely roasted, as he always does, and he's going to get even more of a roasting now, like me and Tobes probably will, and probably Lewis will, because we're all out of the cup. But it is only the Carabao Cup, like people say, so who cares? Guys, make sure you smash a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. You've got me over 6K now already, man. Absolutely mad. I've hit over 100 subs in an overnight, which is amazing, you guys. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate that. Keep the channel growing. I'm going to keep coming back daily if I can, and provide you with content, not just from Arsenal, but all over the football fan base. And I'll be back tomorrow night with a Premier League fan debate that you do not want to miss. It is at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. Set your alarms, put the notification on if you can, if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel because you don't want to miss it. There's going to be some fun tomorrow night. Trust me, there's a very special guest. That's all I'm going to say. Guys, take it easy. We'll see you next time. And although we weren't great tonight, as always, up the Arsenal.